Good evening and welcome to the April 19th, 2022 meeting of the Gloucester Community Preservation Committee. In the interest of government transparency with regards to deliberations and decisions made by the committee and according to open meeting law, since this meeting was posted as a Zoom meeting, this meeting is recorded by video and audio and will be conducted by remote participation. Votes taken by the committee during this and future remote meetings will be by roll call vote. If you are calling in on a phone, you can press *9 to request to speak. If you are watching on a computer or device, there's a raise hand button that you can tap or press to request to speak. Please use either of these options during oral communications to be recognized to speak. All right, I will now take a roll call of who's present to begin the meeting. Hank McCarl.
Here.
Bill Cuff.
Present.
Carrie McKenna.
Here.
Mark Poulin.
Present.
Gary Hoglander.
Here.
Rob Gullah.
Here.
Not present yet are Jennifer Lee Harrison and let's see. And I guess that's it, yeah.
Bob Whitmarsh.
Oh, and Bob Whitmarsh, yeah. So Jennifer Lee and Bob Whitmarsh are not with us. I don't know whether they will be or not, but if they join, we will recognize them at that time. All right, meeting is open. Let me just grab a note here. Very good. First order of business, meeting minutes from March 29th. I sent them around yesterday. Any comments, questions, corrections?
Thought they were well done. I didn't see any adjustments myself. Very well done, Matt.
Good.
I move we accept the minutes.
Second.
Motion's been made to approve the minutes and accept them and seconded. Roll call vote. Hank,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Harry,
Aye.
Mark,
Yes.
Harry. All right, and carry on. Rob.
Yes.
Vote passes unanimously. Minutes are accepted. Excuse me.
Okay, so we're gonna need someone to take notes, Matt.
Yeah, so minutes for tonight's, honestly, until I think we might be 1 month away from getting this recording confirmed. So I'll take them again tonight because I think tonight's going to be really easy.
Okay, thank you.
And so I'll record this meeting, tonight's. All right. So we are at the main order of business for tonight, which is a nomination and election of CPC officers. Did you all, before I proceed, recognize that Bob Whitmarsh has joined the meeting? Bob, good evening.
Hey.
Did everyone get a chance to see the email that I sent out on the subject of officers?
I did, yes.
Any questions
did.
or comments or for clarifications? All right. Then unless there's any interest at this point, I'm going to go ahead and move the resolution that I laid out in my email. And once that's seconded, then we can open for discussion. So I move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas it is in the best interest of the Community Preservation Committee to incorporate in its procedures the establishment of the position of vice chairperson, and whereas the term of office of vice chairperson should be synchronized with the office of chairperson, therefore be it resolved that the Community Preservation Committee establish the office of vice chairperson and the term of such office shall be synchronized with the term of the chairperson. And be it further resolved that the office of vice chairperson may only be filled by the same individual for 2 consecutive 1-year terms. Such provision may be overrode by a 2/3 majority vote of the body.
I will second that resolution.
The resolution has been moved and seconded and is open for debate. And before you proceed, Jennifer Lee, good evening. Welcome.
Aye.
Hey, Jennifer Lee.
Hey,
All right. Any questions, any debate, process? I know we talked about this a bit last month and agreed that I think there was a pretty common agreement that it was a good thing to do. But we put off a month to make sure we had the procedure down pat, which is the resolution that we just moved and seconded. So any discussion?
Hey, I guess, man, the only thing I was gonna say, based on, the document you sent out about the, what do we call it? The charter for the committee, or what's it actually called?
Well, depends on what you're referring to. Are you referring to the 70-odd pager that I attached?
No,
to
no, the short version.
The
The
city-
ordinance thing.
The city code of ordinances.
Yes, the city code of ordinances. That's what I was looking for. The only thing it says in there is the fact that we should elect a chairperson, correct? And talks about the term of a chairperson being, 1 year at a time, or is it 2 years at a time?
1 year at a time. It has to be revoted each year, and a person can be re-elected 2 years in a row by a simple majority. If you want to keep it more than 2 years, it's got to be a 2/3 majority.
Correct. So this position of vice chair is just, this resolution is just tying the vice chairperson into the terms of the chair of the chair.
Right. The code of ordinance also states that beyond the chair, this committee can adopt any other positions as we see fit. I toyed with the idea of nominating a recording secretary, but I didn't want to lay that. I didn't know if we get any volunteers for that one.
That's true. So I think it makes sense. That's my opinion.
All right.
Call the question, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Hank.
I call the question.
Oh, very good. Then we will say debate and discussion is over. And we will vote on this resolution. Hank,
Yes,
Bill,
Yes,
Carrie.
Aye.
are you saying
Mark.
Carrie or Harry?
Yeah, I'm saying Carrie first and Harry second. Sorry about that.
Yes,
Carrie says yes. Mark,
Yes.
Harry. Harry,
Aye.
Rob,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Jennifer Lee.
yes.
Motion to make the office of vice chair is passed unanimously. All right, so on to, excuse me, nominating and electing people to each of these positions. We'll start with chair. That has to be done, even if we hadn't created the office of vice chair, we'd have to do it anyway, since it's been a year since Pam and I went up for vice chairs. So no motion is needed to start the nomination process. Do I hear any nominations for the position?
Before we start, could I just ask, when is this term going to run?
It will run effective April 19 tonight, and will run for 1 year.
Okay, good.
I did look into, it's a good question, Harry, and for the benefit of everybody else, I did ask Chip Payson to confirm this as well. We could set it through different procedures to be some other date, but this is a great time to do it, because if any committee positions turn over, they usually turn over on February 15th. And that way we'll have any new members on each year before these votes have to take place. So we decided to leave it at April 19th. It'll be effective once we have this vote right now. Okay. All right, do I hear any nominations for the position of chair?
I nominate Matt Lundberg.
I'll second that motion.
Let's see. Matt Lumberg is nominated for CPC chair. Are there further nominations for the chair of the CPC? Hearing none, if there is no objection, I will close nominations on CPC chair. Hearing no objections, CPC chair nominations are now closed. We will now take the vote for CPC chair. As we only have one candidate, we can do this one by voice vote. All those in favor of Matt Lundberg for chair, say aye.
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 All opposed, say no. The ayes have it. Matt Lundberg is elected as CPC Chair.
Congratulations, Matt.
Thank you.
Yay.
Thank you, everybody. All right, we will now accept nominations for Vice Chair. Anyone can be nominated, and you can nominate yourself. Nominations do not need to be seconded. Do I hear any nominations for CPC?
I nominate Bill Cuff.
Bill Cuff is nominated for Vice Chair.
Second.
Are there further nominations for Vice Chair? Hearing none, if there is no objection, I will close nominations for Vice Chair. Nominations for Vice Chair are now closed. We will now take the vote for CPC Vice Chair. As we only have one candidate, we can do this by voice vote. All those in favor of Bill Cuff for Vice Chair, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. The ayes have it. Bill Cuff is elected to Vice Chair. Bill, you
Hey,
don't
Bill.
know what you got yourself into, but thank you for your service in advance.
Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you for the nomination, Hank and Bob and Hank.
All right, so thank you for moving quickly through that. Next agenda item, current application updates. I know that many of us have had conversations with a variety of applicants. If there is no update, that's fine. I just know that there have been some conversations with applicants and wanted to see if there's any news from anybody that would be interesting to pass along. So I thought we'd go through these alphabetically by project, which means the Adventure Runner project would be first. And Carrie, I think that was you.
Yes. So,
anything-
yep, I've been in touch with them a couple of times. They have hired an executive director, Stuart Signor. I'm not sure I'm pronouncing that properly. I've been in touch with both him and one of the board of directors members who's been kind of taking over for Betsy. So Betsy will come off as the contact, and I'm waiting for those two, for Stuart and Bill, to decide which one of them is going to be the contact. And once I get that information, I'll send it out to everybody. So if you're keeping a contact list, we can update that and probably change it in Neighborly as well.
Great,
They were featured on yesterday's
Yeah.
Gloucester Times.
right?
Yep. Yep. Yeah, they've got some exciting plans ahead. So hopefully all will work out with this new captain and he's not a captain, new executive director.
Great. Okay, and they're all set for having everything they need to get their application done by the 3rd.
Yep, I think so. So far, they seem to be. I've made myself available that if they have any questions, please let me know. But Betsy, I think, is left in pretty good shape. This gentleman, Bill, has done most of the work. He does a lot of their other grant work, so he's very familiar with all of that kind of thing. So I think they're in good shape.
Great, thanks. All right, the city-owned cemeteries restoration project. Bob, that was you, I think?
Yes, yep. I've been in touch with Chris Manny, and she wants to get a letter from the Historical Commission, which we're working on now. We have some copy to work with. We'll be getting that done fairly soon. We're going to be having a meeting of the Historical Commission, probably the first Monday in May. And we'll follow up on that. And in the meantime, we'll get that letter out to her.
Great. Good. Dogtown. Mark, you just picked up Dogtown. Anything you've got? I know you're going to be in touch with, you already were in touch with Cindy Dunn, right?
I was in touch with Cindy last week and then again today. She just had a meeting today she had a meeting scheduled with the mayor, Mike Hale, Val Gilman, and I think Joe, I'm not sure. The mayor was out, he couldn't make it, but she had a conversation with Mike. We had a conversation with Mike Hale. This is the one where they've got two, right? And
Right.
One is a study and one is the actual remediation. So yeah, she had a good conversation, and I think that the city will probably try to look to, start the process of an alternate site. It's unclear to me, I guess, whether or not we still want to go forward with the study part of it or not. and then there was a talk about on the remediation side, whether or not that wants to be next year possibly, right? So I guess it's still a little, I don't have a complete story on it yet.
Yeah, got it.
But, and I'm not sure if Cindy's listening in. I think she was gonna dial in, I'm not sure, but that's where that's at. And the application, some of it's filled out, I think, but not all of it.
Okay.
So,
Good. Well, if they need any more help with the application, just to make sure everything's done, that's the main thing at this point, and then we can flesh out the details. That's the big question I have on that one going forward is why 2 now and what the timing is. I
Right.
mean, as we talked about, I did have a chance to talk with Mike Hale a few weeks ago, and Mike's point was, I'm not going to shut down the first one until there's a new site. And so it seems like you got to find the new site before you work on the old one.
right, and I guess maybe a question is whether or not we need funds to find a new site or not.
Right.
Right, I think it's really what it comes down to, but it's clear that there's 2 there and that one has to happen before the other.
Yep.
So,
Has the issue of open space versus historical preservation been resolved?
that one was marked off, that one I think says open space, right? If I remember
Right, but
correctly.
we decided that could not happen because of the definition of the land was not purchased by CPC funds to begin with. So I had suggested at the last meeting that they go at it from a historical preservation standpoint, because we know that the historical committee deems it a significant historical site. And I thought that we were trying to pursue that. So I just don't want that to fall through the cracks. If that's going to be their only chance of getting funding, I feel like we should help them with that.
Yeah, that's a great point, Carrie. And Mark, I forgot to pass that along to you.
Yeah, would that be the second part though? Would that be the second application, the remediation side or the study side? Would
I
either
think
one-
they both fall into that. Dogtown is already recognized as an historic asset of Gloucester. And
The land was not purchased with CPC funding to begin with, so it can't fall under the open space restoration.
Okay. So we can amend the application, is that?
Well, I think so. I think that's what we should do. I mean, that's what I had
Okay.
suggested, but we need to do that before May 3rd. They need to do that. Somebody needs to do that before May 3rd.
Okay. I'll reach out on that then.
just let them know to just make sure that box is checked and not open space.
Right.
Okay, great. Right, let's see. Next up, after the Dogtown ones is Magnolia Library, and that was Rob, which I think you just met with them, right?
Yes, I did. I spoke with Steve Ludwig for Trinity Congregational Church. As Matt knows, I talked to Matt. They had a lot of questions that were over my head. So I got Matt involved. They basically don't know what they're doing. And they're a sweet gentleman, very nice gentleman. But he admitted straight up, well, actually, we both admitted to each other, I'm a neophyte in this process, and he's a neophyte in his process. So I had to push it all on poor Matt to try and help us untangle the weeds. But Magnolia Library, the church was Steve Ludwig, and the library is Kylie, I forget her last name.
Davis.
Kylie Davis, yes. And she has a more specific questions related to what she could and could not put into the proposal in terms of numbers to make sure that they met perfectly. They're adjusting their application, I would say, since the generator portion was dropped. They're refocusing the time and energy on doing more work on the building and where that money can be applied. Does it have to match exactly what they came up with the first time? And Matt sent a nice email to me, which I forwarded to her, explaining what to do. So I think she knows where she's at.
Great, all right, good enough.
Matt, real quick on the Dogtown, I just checked neighborly and both are checked off as historic.
Great, thanks, Mark. All right, Main Street Affordable Housing, any update, Jennifer Lee?
The one from the Housing Authority is, well, David's an old pro, so he knows exactly what to say and what to do, and he is working on it.
Yeah.
He'll be fine.
Got it. Okay,
Um,
great.
Is that just the roofs or the other one? Do you want?
No,
the
no,
other
no.
one?
The one I'm asking right now is the YMCA, the old sorry, the Main Street Affordable Housing at 252.
Okay, so the final decision will not be made before the deadline. So they are going to proceed as if they have it. If it turns out that they don't, then it'll be moot. It'll just need to be withdrawn.
Right.
But in the meantime, I did have a question about whether that should just be that when and if it does come up, it would be off cycle. Because they won't be doing anything for a while.
Yeah.
Even if they get it.
We should sometime through the process of the next few months, we should confirm if they do win that bid, when they need the CPA request. Because if it's early in the process versus late in the process, it's kind of like the YMCA Main Street application, right? I mean, we
It's
granted-
exactly the same thing.
Right. We granted them money at least a couple of cycles ago, which is reserved for them, but just still sitting in our accounts until they break ground. In that case, it was premature to ask for a CPA application.
Well, you know why they do it. They do it so they can show the community support.
Right.
But here's something I don't know whether I should say about. There's another applicant being considered for the project, and they will be interested.
Right.
If they get it, they will be interested. That's just an aside.
Right. Right. Well, I think what you were saying about the roof project for Willowwood, it applies here too. Andrew Leonard is at Harbor Lights, knows what he's doing, and the application looks solid. I don't think they need any more help right now.
No.
Right. Yeah. So it's good to go. Okay.
Yes, in terms of today, yes.
Great.
It's all good to go.
All right. Well, let's move on to the Manship projects. And I can't remember if Bill and I went to visit them before our last meeting or not, but we've had a visit with them. They actually have 3 stages to their project. One is an overall property usage study they want to do. The second one is an architectural design project to define what they're going to do to the 2 buildings that are on the site. And the third one is to actually do the work. It's still not clear to me what that timeline looks like, but all they understand what their process is. I think they're still struggling with when each of those pieces of work will get done. And I'm still not sure how these 2 projects will end up, and whether we'll fund one or both or none. It's going to get changed before we get to the end of the process, is my guess. But they need more time to figure that out. But they understand what we need to see, and it definitely qualifies. So we'll see what happens. I think stay tuned on that one. All right, Bill, anything new with the Lady of Good Voyage?
Lady of Good Voyage. No, actually nothing new. Cindy, who was in charge of the application, was away on vacation. And in fact, she emailed me today to reconnect Thursday or Friday. I know she suggested a site visit at some point, so I'll keep you posted.
Okay, great. Thank you. Mark, Nate Ross baseball field.
Hey, Ross, baseball field. So I had a site visit last week with the applicant Rory and the other co-applicant, and did a walkthrough of it, and they seemed very motivated to keep going. There was some email exchange about going to Concom or something, or finding out if they need an RDA or something, right? I mean, they're motivated to continue on. I think they got their application, the math wrong on their application, because it said that they were only requesting $6,500, but yet they checked off 90%, which to me, I think they just got the math wrong on the application, but it was 65,000. But they did indicate that they have some other funding sources that they're working on, and they did complete a couple other sections of their application. So I think it's the ball's in their court to proceed with, I guess, with Concom, maybe with RDA or something like that.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think, Rob, thanks for suggesting that. And I thought you said that they were going to do that, Mark, that they were going to try to get in front of the Concom for that.
Yeah, I mean, clearly, there's like they showed a sketch of all the drainage, and it feeds out, and it actually goes beyond center field, beyond the fence to the smaller field behind it. And they talked about some clean out box area. I mean, clearly it was in the buffer zone. You know, you were right there by the edge of the wetlands there. So clearly they need to, you know, do something there.
Yeah, more than like two, if I may jump in, 2 quick points would be, is you probably want to have Ryan Marks from engineering take a peek at it. I know he's kind of in conflict because he's actually the one on the application, if I'm not mistaken. Or
He's a co-applicant, yeah.
But really, first thing they want to talk about is drainage. They don't want to have problems with the road or water being pushed in places it shouldn't. So usually, whenever something comes before conservation, when it's related to drainage, usually we push it to the engineering department to make sure they don't have a problem with it. And then the other item is that they just know that because it's city property, that all the fees get waived. There aren't really a lot of fees.
Right. So, but everything looks like it's draining off beyond center field, which is towards the wetlands area. So nothing looks like it's going towards the roads or anything. It's all away from there.
Good.
From what I saw. So your guidance is to have them proceed with the Concom application, but also contact engineering is.
Yeah, if they actually have some sort of plan put together, you know, something graphic that the engineering department can take a quick peek at before it goes before conservation, that would be ideal. They may just say, you know, this is not going to affect anything that we care about.
Okay.
Usually that's the case, but you just don't want to have to go backwards after the fact.
Right. All right. Thank you.
Good. Okey doke. Harry, Rocky Neck Cultural Center. Anything new?
Well, yes, this was my first site visit. I was accompanied by the wonderful Bill Cuff, who sort of led me along there. Actually, we ran into some problems that we thought we'd bring back for some board answers. Number one, when we got there, we met with Courtney and Stephen, who are on the board, and they revealed to us that what they were asking for might be superseded by some plans of their board to expand the actual building, which would then over time obliterate what we're paying them to correct or restore now. So the question, I guess, was, and I don't know if I'm going to frame it properly in a simplistic manner, was that if they go forward with the application, which we sort of indicated that they should, because we don't know which way their board is going to go. And indeed, we do award them money, and the board makes a decision to take some action that would then make the improvements that we would approve with our money, and that money was spent, would we want the money back? And I didn't have an answer for that.
Very good question. I think I have an answer for that one. And the answer, an example of it is the Babson Ailing House Award that we did the year before I came on. But Hank, you may remember this one, and Jennifer Lee and Bob, when they made that award, they, in the agreement, there's a municipal restriction put on it that if that's the Cape Ann Museum, and the Babson Ailing House is the yellow house that's on the museum green by the Rotary. When in the award, it stated that they cannot sell or destroy that house for, I think it's 29 years. And I had some conversations with Stuart Saganor, the executive director of the coalition, who basically said they recommend whenever you are concerned by that, just put a restriction on it, whether it's a conservation restriction, a municipal restriction. It's just part of a signed agreement that you should put in place. And the reason for 29 years is significant. I think if you go longer, you need to have some state approval. So I can send around that agreement that, we sign pretty simple agreements with organizations that are not part of the municipal group. And this was a good example. So if you guys want to see it, I'll send it around. It pretty much says, can't tear it down, you can't destroy it, you can't sell it if you want to get our money. I think that would work for them, right?
I'd like to see
Because
that.
if they can't agree to that, if they're going to expand it, then they wouldn't get the money.
So the idea is that if they go forward with the application under the assumption maybe that the board isn't going to approve an expansion, that we could go forward, and I guess we could put some sort of restriction on the award of that money.
Right.
But in the meantime, since the board will probably make a decision within the next 6 months, they could withdraw their application at some point before the fall. Would that be good advice? Because I'm going to call them next week.
Yes, I think that'd be great advice.
And also, apparently, they went before Bob Whitmarsh's committee and they received a historical certification for that old church that's now the Rocky Neck Community Arts Center, right?
Great.
So, that was a question that came up because they said they had not been approved as a historical building. And Bob, I was just wondering if you could walk us through what the process is for that.
Well, there's different levels of this. So one would be recognition from the Historical Commission. And also they could seek to be put on the National Historic Register, which is even stronger, of course. I don't think that's going to be necessary for this. I think the recognition from the local historical commission is a significant enough indication that the property is historic.
Right. And what do they have to do? Just go before? I'm just trying to understand the process with your commission. If if I have a building such as the church and I want to make it recognized, and because I know on our committee we can accept a designation by the city historical commission. So they go before the commission, present their case, and you have a vote. And then what happens next?
That's correct. And then I'll write a letter in conjunction with getting information from the applicant, in this case, the Rocky Neck Cultural Center, and we'll come up with a letter that's suitable to put forth so that they can have that on record.
Okay. Because an interesting comment they made was because Rocky Neck has been designated a historical area, that they didn't feel that they had to go and get there. They know now, but prior to this application, they felt that they didn't have a need to get designated as a historical building.
Yeah. What a lot of people don't realize is that every single property within the designated area that's considered to be a historic district of some type, even National Register, not every building actually would qualify on its own, but as a entirety it would, but not individually for for each individual property. So that's why they have to go for this.
Okay, all right, thank you, Bob.
Sure.
I love that painting in the background, Bob.
Oh,
of the
well, thank you.
ships.
See if I can tell you what it is. It's a steeple.
Oh, it's a nice one.
All right. Thank you, guys. On to Saunders House. Hank.
It's a pretty straightforward situation, and there's absolutely no question that they need to replace the HVAC system. It's ancient, and it broke down several times this last year, and they were without heat, and they don't need to have to shut the library down when, or they do have to shut the library down when that happens. They'll get a letter from whoever, I guess DPW handles the maintenance on the thing, and they'll just get a letter certifying that it desperately needs to be replaced. And I advised them that would be a good thing to put in a portfolio, and also to show that the importance of a proper heating and cooling system, it will be too, is of great help to preservation of the murals that are in the house, which we've already funded for restoration. So they'll come through with a pretty straightforward proposal. And the nice thing about their proposal is there won't be any question. They'll be able to get a contract, and then the contract is executed and it's finished. So there's nothing just hanging out there like we've had on some of the projects. And they don't need to get a lot of volunteers because it's a totally professional installation project. So it's pretty straightforward. And the people that met with me, the library director and the assistant, and Merle, who I think is president of the incorporators, if I'm not mistaken, how that works. I said to him, I said, the difficulty that we have with anything doing with the library is that, virtually everybody that's doing anything is a corporator of the library. So you could always claim it was a conflict of interest, but nobody's getting any money out of it. It's just, obviously they've all got an interest in seeing that the thing is well cared for.
Great. Thank you. Next up, the Lucy Davis Pathway Extension at Stage Fort Park. Mark and I have both been with these guys a little bit on it. You had a site visit, Mark, I believe, right? And I had some other discussions.
I went with Bill.
Yes.
I'll speak to this one a bit because it's a little bit of a different issue than I think we've got with other ones. It, along with several other projects, are municipal projects. Really, the city of Gloucester is the applicant. The Stage Fort Park Advisory Committee is just a committee like us. I asked for and had a meeting with the mayor and Pam, who is on the meeting, by the way, which is great to see Pam. But basically to say, look, these municipal projects, some of them, it's pretty clear that they have the backing and the knowledge and awareness of whoever's going to be doing the build out of it. The cemetery one, I mean, all this, the cemetery commission guys, Mike's with them. The headstones last year that we did were in the DPW facility, so you knew it would get done. This one, there seemed to be a disconnect between when the applicant said they wanted to get the project done, which was they want to start building next month and have it done by November, so it's ready for the 400th. But Mike Hale just recently sent out the RFP to bidders. So I just said to the mayor, look, going forward, when we get these eligibility applications from the city, we'll let you know, because we need to know from you which ones are going to get done in the time frame that the applicant says they're going to get done. And when they send the application in, we need to have a letter from either you or whoever's doing the work, like the DPW, that says, yes, we support this and we can get it done in this time frame. That's the preamble to say, I suspect that this is going to change. Not sure how the amounts are going to change or the timing, but I suspect it's going to change before we're done. And but when it does change, it'll have the city behind it and not just the advisory committee. So another stay tuned, but interesting problem.
Right. And what I gathered from the site visit was I mean, even though it says Lucy Davis Pathway, it extends well up into the Cannon area and removing some of the earth mounds and making it more historic and in nature. And you can't really do that second part. The whole thing wants to get done at once. I mean, clearly it's not something that you would try to do just the pathway and then later on decide to go do the Cannon area. It just doesn't make any sense to do it that way. You know, so it really does need to be done in one big project just because of the moving of the earth and the machinery that has to get in there and everything else. So there was some thought as to why it was $400,000 for a pathway, but a lot of that was up into the Cannon area.
Yeah.
You know, the overlook. So.
Yep. Yeah. So I talked to the mayor, I talked to Mike Hale. Everybody wants to get it done. It's just that it got having the design pushed out for almost 2 years because of COVID just crushed it. So I suspect that it won't get done. But nobody wants it to be a construction zone in early 2023.
During the 400th. I mean, yeah. I mean, you couldn't have staged it better. There was a couple walking up the dirt part of the path, all huffing and puffing and walking through the rocks saying, wow, I wish this path was extended. I mean, you couldn't, I think they had a plant come during the site visits. It was really funny. It was a couple was like, we need to do something about that path. Yeah. So it really is. It would really complete that whole area and I like the project. It's just the timing is really off.
We'll find out more as we get closer to September.
Yeah.
Bill, Stage Ford Park Playground.
Yes, I actually made a site visit with the Rotary Club. This is actually being coordinated by the Rotary Club of Gloucester to celebrate their 100th and 25th anniversary, which is coming up next year. So I met with the incoming president as well as one of the individuals who's involved in the site work, who happens to be a member of the Stage Ford Park Advisory Committee. And the timing of this looks like it's good because they want to do it next year. Beginning in March. They're looking for a 50% support of what the total cost of the budget will be. They're looking for the CPC to fund the playground equipment, and the Rotary is going to raise the money to do the site work. And if anyone's familiar with that playground, they did the other section a while back, I think in 2004. They updated it, and that part of the park is really designed for children 5 years and above. The part that they didn't renovate last time were for the younger 5 and below, and they want to make the improvements in that area so it's similar to the other playground that they updated back in 2004, I believe it was. So, because the little kids shouldn't be playing in the bigger kids area. So, and they have some plans designed for equipment, and they're working on their application. So I think that'll be a good one for us to discuss when it gets completed.
Great.
Any questions?
Yeah, they got to leave the seesaws in?
Yes, they're not going to touch the seesaws. That's not one of the areas they're going to improve.
Wow, interesting. I thought those you couldn't put those in anymore.
Yeah, I thought those.
Yeah, maybe that's why they're not touching them.
Right, leave them. They're grandfathered in.
Yeah.
Well, that's great because there is some stuff that's falling apart up there. That's good to know.
Yeah.
Good. Okay. Next up, the hockey rink, Bill, which I think you just settle a site visit for this weekend, yeah, or next weekend.
No, next weekend. Yes, I had a conversation. I have had a couple conversations with Kyle Ellis. They were working on some funding. They actually just got. He was very excited on Saturday. He called me. They just got a commitment from an individual who donated $50,000 to this project, and so he wanted to make a site visit for us and that individual. And we set a date of April 30th at 11 a.m. I know it's a Saturday, but if anyone would like to join me for that, you're more than welcome, and we'll get an overview. Mark, I did speak to Kyle about that side of the rink that's kind of washing away and going down the hill. And he advised me that part of the plan is to build a retaining wall to prevent that from happening. Because I know Matt and I, and Mark and I went over there, I should say, and visited when we, just to take a look at it, when we did the Lucy Davis extension. So, Hopefully they can get that up and running as soon as possible, but we'll have our site visit on the 30th.
Bill, are they actively working on that this year?
Yes. He was hoping that the light stanchions were going in. My understanding is that this summer is going to be a big summer of getting things done, putting the boards up, getting the lights on, etc. And I'll learn more about the official what their targeted grand opening date is when we meet on the 30th.
All right. Good. On to Maritime Gloucester, Carrie?
Yep, so nothing really new here. I have spoken with Michael again and made sure that he knew that he absolutely has to get that building deemed historic by the historic committee. I don't know, Bob, has he come to you yet?
No,
No.
I haven't heard from him yet.
So I'm actually gonna see him
We
tomorrow.
can get him on
so
the
I
next,
will-
we have a meeting coming up, so we can get him on the agenda. if we can get
When is your next meeting?
It'll be the first Monday in May, and that's.
Okay.
The calendar handy.
Yeah, no, I can, first Monday in May, I'll tell him that.
That is,
I'm
at least
actually gonna
that,
see him, I will see him tomorrow, so I will needle him to get going on that because I believe, and I think, Matt, you agree that this
Right.
really hinges on that building being deemed historical if they have any shot at getting the money.
right.
Good. Next, Rob, you mentioned the West Gloucester Church.
Yep.
And I think I did drop you an email late. I did chat briefly with Steve Ludwig. And he's going to dive in. So we'll see what happens. Yeah. Same thing. Are they already on the state register or recognized by Gloucester Historic? I think, why do I think they are?
I think they are, because aren't they the oldest church in Gloucester?
I
I
believe
think
they are.
Hold on,
Yeah.
let me look at my notes here.
Well, in any case, we should just make sure they get that done. And let's see. And Jennifer Lee, you already mentioned Willowwood. That seems pretty straightforward. Really no update required, right?
Right.
Yeah. Okey doke. Very good. Okey doke. Well, that's updates. I'd like to thank everybody for reaching out. Some people need no help at all, and some people need everything. So I'm glad we got out in front of them, and hopefully these applications are as complete as they can be by May 3rd. And again, if they need augmentation or changes as we roll through the summer, that's something that can be done, but it'd be good to get them as clean as we can by May 3rd. Any other questions on project statuses? Harry?
Since I'm the newcomer here, there are two questions that came up. One was, is the May 3rd date absolute? By that, is there any extensions granted for unusual conditions, or is that a rigid date?
It's not a rigid date. We'd like to have complete applications by that point, but if there are corrections or uncertain points, like a build out schedule or something that's an estimate but without a firm price on from a contractor, that's acceptable. The real drop, the real date by which everything needs to be rock solid is probably more like August, because that's when we have to start deliberating as a committee on which.
Perhaps I didn't phrase that properly. We have to, what is my understanding that the application itself has to be received by this committee by May 3rd. Modifications then can come after that.
That is correct.
Okay, but we have to have it in hand by May 3rd.
Yes. Now, strictly technically, they've all started their application already because they've all done the eligibility portion of it, and it's the same system. It's just completing more sections of the application in the same system. But they've got to complete the rest of the sections. All right.
Matt, what about off-cycle requests that, like the one that?
Glad you brought that up.
One. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know how to bring that up or.
Sure. I'm glad you did. Mark made me aware of a project a week ago that is coming forward from a group who wants to renovate the tennis courts at Gloucester High School, the ones down by the boat launch behind the school. It's a substantial project, and they are interested in seeing whether they can apply for CPC funds for it. Their time frame is soon. Did they want to, were they planning to actually do it this year, Mark? I forget. I don't have it.
As soon as tennis was over,
Okay.
so like end of June.
So if they were interested in pursuing CPC funds for that project, the only way that it could be effective for them is to request to be considered for an off-cycle application. And I told Mark, because I think you know somebody that's involved with that, right?
They
And-
reached out to me because
Yeah. So what I told Mark was you could certainly have them start, write us a letter to apply for consideration for an off-cycle application. But that's going to be a tough one right now. We've already got 17 projects that are in the queue, totaling almost twice as much money as we have available to make grants with this year. I would love to fund it, but I'm just not sure the timing works for us. But I said also that's for our committee to decide. That's just, well, I'm just one person. But if they wanted to start the process, this process would start with a letter and a package. I would do this one, and I think we've done it with off cycles, like when we did the Action Incorporated one last year. We didn't go through Neighborly to do that. We just said, give us an application, give us information that describes the project, and then we'll tell you more about what we need before we make a decision. And that's how it starts. So if they want to do it, it's a letter, and then we would consider it at a meeting. Anyway, that was what I told Mark to tell the potential applicant. Any other thoughts, comments from anybody? Yes, Jennifer Lee.
That's on school property, yes?
It is on school property.
And geez, it's so close to the water.
Yeah.
That's a hole. It's a little bit like the baseball diamond, but sort of even more so.
Yeah.
Mark, do they have the project approved already?
They have a presentation. They sent a presentation out. I can summarize real quick. It's like a $500,000 project. And about half of it is committed to private resources on it. And it was pretty impressive, actually, what the commitment was for alternate, for second sourcing it. And they are open to, I believe they're open to doing it in phases where they could possibly use their private funds to start like the resurfacing, and then maybe apply for CPC funds to do lighting and bleachers and other, amenities, to complete the project. So that's what I mean. They may decide to just do something like that. I know in the fundraising efforts, they want to have it be a complete project in terms of fundraising, because they don't want to, go fundraise for bleachers later or fundraise for lights. I mean, they want to fundraise as a complete project, but how they allocate the funds, whether it's off-cycle CPC or private funds, they may decide to just go for some of it while they can, just because timing is everything, right, on it with respect to resurfacing. So that's what I know about it.
Okay. And I'm sorry, Jennifer, I didn't mean to cut you off if you had another.
No. I'm just wondering who they are. When you say they are going for this and they are doing that and they want this and that, who are they?
So I've got their slides here, Mark. They are, hold on a second. Actually, I'm not sure who the specific people are behind it, but it
No,
is,
but
yeah, it's a private group. It's not the city of Gloucester or the school system. I think it's a group of parents and possibly other supporters of the tennis system. Mark, can you shed more on
Yeah,
that?
that is true. One of them, I believe, might be I think an assistant tennis coach, who was a former professional tennis player. And that's part of it, what I know. But who the official applicants will be when they fill out the form. I guess they'll put that. They'll have to list somebody, right? As well as a co-applicant, but I don't know if it's a group or just an individual name, but
a private committee, that's what you're saying.
Yeah.
it's a private, yes, it's definitely a private committee.
Okay.
So Matt, how does that work? Do we have to get permission from the city to improve this city-owned land before we give them funds, or does this committee have to do that, or how would that work?
Yeah.
It's eventually the project will be I'll check all this because I wasn't around on the last couple of times this was done. I was involved in a project pretty similar to this in Acton, but that was a long time ago. A group of a group of citizens formed a nonprofit. They raised a bunch of money and then contributed that to the city on the condition that the city use it to, the school system in that case. And the city also pitched in some money. The project was actually, when it was built out by the school system. So that's how it would work. There's a private fundraising organization that raises money, gets the city and the school committees, the school system's agreement, and then the build out takes place. Does that answer your question?
Sort of, but what if if there needs to be any restrictions put on it because of, for any reason, it's too close to the water, it's whatever, they're gonna tear it down, the city is planning on rebuilding tennis courts for the high school in some close time in the future. I mean, any reason,
Right.
seems odd to me to be granting a citizen group money to be doing work on public property.
And that's why it's a citizen group raising money, but if this indeed does go forward, it's the school system that's building something on school property.
So they would have that permission up front. We would see that the school committee is bought into this.
I wouldn't give them CPC money unless they did.
Right.
But you raised the most important point, I think, which is what kind of restrictions can you put in place to be sure that CPC taxpayer money is used appropriately and that it is preserved. I think that this is not something that can be rushed through CPC. It would have to be examined pretty carefully, and it can't be done without the full buy-in of the city and the school system, and without restrictions that make sure that the money is well spent. So I mean, those are hurdles that I just threw out, Mark, but I think that that's kind of where we go. Jennifer Lee, you put your
Well,
hand up.
not the smallest part of this is who is going to guarantee maintenance of this whole thing, you know.
Yeah.
It has to be properly maintained, and it's not a simple thing to maintain tennis courts,
Right.
etc. And there's insurance, I mean, yuck, with bleachers and lights, and what are they gonna have, the Gloucester Open or something?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's in the presentation, but I don't know if we have time tonight to look at it, but it is.
I would say no. I mean, if they want to apply for off-cycle consideration. By the way, I'm not sure that we would say let's give them off-cycle application. Again, not because of I mean, to me, this project, we could consider it as a committee if it comes in. We're not going to do that tonight.
Right.
But there's a lot to consider. You know, what kind of vetting do we need to put in front of it? How does it sit relative to all the other funding requests we've got this year? anyway, that's,
Man, you bring up a point that I'm struggling with myself personally, not with this project, but, you know, specifically, but just doing an off-cycle meeting at this point in time. You know, we got 21 applications in. We don't have enough funding for all these others. I find it difficult to take somebody in right now, whether it be the tennis or anything, that says, let's do an off-cycle and make that kind of jump the gun to put them ahead of the 21 people that we're looking at right now. Now,
Yep.
if you want to include them in, that's a different story. And I think back to the action project when we did, and again, this is my first year on the committee and we've only done one off cycle. The action project was for the homeless. They came in December and they, you know, we had already allocated all of our money for last year. We did have an extra reserve and they were saying to us, they had a big concern about getting homeless people who couldn't meet their bills, coverage through the winter months in the light of what was happening with COVID. And for them to wait another year was going to be extremely difficult. I thought that was exceptional circumstances and justified an off-cycle application. That's just my feelings for what it's worth.
yeah. Good points. And again, so I think that there's a lot of points to consider. And if this applicant wants to write us a letter to consider whether we would consider an off-cycle application, that's step one, Mark. If they want to get that done before we meet again a month from now, they should do it and we can put it on the agenda for next month. But I think you can hear it. It's far from certain whether we'd even consider an off-cycle application at this point.
Right.
You know, unless there's anything else on that subject, that concludes the current application updates and we're into administrative update. This is pretty quick. I only have two things on my plate. If anybody else has anything, that's great. One is budget. I don't know how much the committee's been involved in budget before, but it is in fact one of the few explicit requirements of a community preservation committee is to be involved in the creation of the annual budget along with the city or town that we are in. I know they did in the early years. They kind of set up a process. I've spoken to JJ Bell, who was one of the first chairmen back in the early days of the CPC, and Kenny Costa is the city auditor. He's been there for years, and they had a fairly standard approach to the budget. I asked Kenny to include us in it, and that process is going on right now. I'm having my first chat with him. He was out last week, but we're going to talk tomorrow. In short, it's pretty simple. We have a certain amount of money in our accounts already. When they make the fiscal 23 budget, they take into account how much is there, how much they expect to come in this coming fiscal year, and how much we should budget to make available. We have about $1.3 to $1.4 million in captured CPC funds that are sitting in the city's bank accounts. Kenny's recommendation is that his first recommendation was budgeting only $825,000 of that, which was a big increase from the previous year. I said, no, I think we need to be closer to $1 million. His point was always good to have something in reserve in case something unexpected comes up, like the Action Incorporated off cycle. We're talking tomorrow. I said, my gut says we should budget $1 million. And don't forget, budgeting doesn't mean that we can't award more when we get out to the awards process. Budgeting is just the plan the city works from. If we ask them to appropriate more in our recommendations, that goes to Budget and Finance and the City Council, and they can make the decision later. So anyway, that's the budget update from an administrative standpoint. I wanted to pass along to you all. Questions, comments?
Yeah, man, I had a question, and this goes back to the Community Preservation Coalition website.
Mhm.
So I went back on there and just looked at it's. They had a chart called revenue, and when it comes to 2022, you know the amount that we got last year from the state, the 322,000. They have that credited in the 2022 column, and I know that got announced in November of 21. So I'm assuming It's money to spend in 2022. But the Preservation Coalition has us as a 0 for 2022 from Gloucester. They do have us down for 700, our own city local surcharge. They don't have us down for anything for the budget for 2022. So my question, I guess, is, has the city given us that number yet, or is that what they're finalizing, 22? Or are they finalizing 23?
I suspect that what you're looking at might be out of date on the coalition website. If you can
Okay.
offline, send me an email with the link to that page that you're looking at. And I'll bring
Okay.
it up to Paul Russo and Greg and Kenny Costa and make sure that our records match. I do know what's in the city's bank accounts, and that's 1.3 to 1.4 million.
Well, yeah, I know that true. I was just trying to figure out, the way they allot the money, that's all.
Got it. Send me
Thank
the
you.
link. Yep. All right, if there's nothing else on budget, I had one other administrative update I wanted to bring up to the committee. And actually, I just added it to the agenda about 4 hours ago because I was walking through Rockport and went through the path down off of Marmion Way. And there's a nice big, this path improvement was funded by your CPC dollars. And I realized we haven't talked about the Gloucester, supported by the Gloucester CPC signs, maybe since I've been here for over a year. I think we ought to just get back to the projects that are there and get more signs out. That's what prompted me, because I like seeing those signs. I think it always makes me feel good. I'm glad our money's spent on good projects. But I wanted to see what you guys thought, because it's been a while, and I don't think there's a lot of recent projects that have signs in front of them.
Are the signs supposed to be permanent or just a year or so, or?
I think
Because
they're,
that was the,
they're
I
permanent.
think they're permanent. yeah.
Yeah.
because we got a sign for the back shore, and I remember we had to put a piece of duct tape over Mayor Kirk's name and write in Safaviah.
Yeah.
But we were told that you can keep the sign there for 3 months or something. We need it back. That's what I was told. So we actually pulled it out of the ground and give it back.
Interesting. Well,
But we didn't want a permanent sign in that location either. So that.
got it. All right. Well, seems to me this might be worth a sign subcommittee. This is, I think there's a little bit more that goes into this, like, should the mayor's name be on it? I mean, this is the taxpayer money. It doesn't really matter who the mayor is at one point or another. I don't know. I'm just throwing it out. But it should be more permanent, I think. Also, they're pretty small signs. They're not big and glaring ones. I think it's just a nice reminder that this is a program that's in place. Oh,
I think we should have the signs up.
anybody interested in, so here's what I think needs to happen then. I think we need to kind of state a plan. What do the signs look like now? Do we want to change them? Are there a ton of signs sitting in a DPW shed somewhere, or do we have to get more made?
Probably more made.
Yeah, and then, what projects have been funded that should have signs in front of them. So there's a little legwork to do on this. And I'm looking for volunteers on anybody who would like to do that legwork. By the way, if nobody signs up, that's fine. This hasn't been done for a while. It can wait. So anybody interested?
I'm very interested, but I get overcommitted constantly. I just, I could participate
Okay.
in getting something done, but research is not my best thing. So once we have the facts, there are this many signs there, what you've just brought up.
Yeah.
I would be happy to be one of the people who addresses this.
I don't necessarily want to be on the committee, but I would say the signage itself, I think it's a good idea, but I think it needs to be, it's like everything else. They're not cheap. They need to be maintained. They need to be stored. I would pick one project, maybe a year, that, I wouldn't be sprinkling them throughout the city.
Right.
It's another problem.
Let's put it on the hockey rink, but let's not put it on the cemetery.
Exactly, yeah, exactly. I mean, I think we
Yeah.
pick one year and, the jewel of the year or whatever, and
Yeah.
do it that way. But aside from that, I don't, in this way, it doesn't become a onerous project for someone else to deal with signage too.
Whoops.
We had to deal with the plumbers. It was a fiasco with the signage on the beach, and it was, then they get graffitied. It's tricky. It's not as easy as just putting up a sign.
Yep. All good points. Okay, well, let's file this under an idea worth exploring, but we're not going to do anything about it yet. If I have a conversation with Mike Hale or somebody else, I might ask, hey, where are there signs around? Where are they? And we'll see where things lie.
Well, I know there's one at State Fort Park because I happened to notice it while we were there doing this site inspection. I'm prompted to take a look at that sign, take a picture of it and send it to everybody.
Yeah, there's one in front of the Avis Murray tennis courts on the boulevard too.
Okay.
Okey doke. That's all I had for administrative update.
Any word on getting a secretary for the group?
That's a maybe. I hope to have more to report on that next month.
Okay.
But the answer, it's maybe, but nothing right now.
Okay. Thank you.
All right.
Is there any more information about getting back together in person versus Zoom?
I'm glad you brought that up. Well, we haven't discussed it here. Nobody has reached out to me like what happened before Omicron and said, we're going to go back into in person. So I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I know what I've read on City Council, which is that I think they're going to try a hybrid meeting sometime soon.
Yeah.
I think the problem is that the benefits of remote have been, I think everybody's like remote just because it's so much easier for people to attend. And not just committee members, but the public as well.
Could we have a discussion among our group quickly to see what our preference is?
Yeah, sure.
I mean, I think doing the Zoom versus trying to get back in person is, I think the advantages of Zoom. If we can keep doing it Zoom, if we don't have to go back in person, I would be in favor of Zooming. I don't know how anybody else feels, but I think we have to
sorry.
decide. Huh?
Housing Authority.
I've been doing a bunch of meetings on Zoom and they seem to be quite practical and efficient compared to some meetings that I've always attended in the past in person. What I do miss is the interaction between members, but I think, as Bill says, if I had a vote right now, I'd say Zoom.
Housing Authority Board, we've had a couple, because we had to view presentations. We have had a couple of meetings recently.
Mhm.
It was pretty terrific to be together. There's a whole different, it's different.
Yeah.
But maybe some of each, maybe there would be reason to be together sometimes, but for most of the time, Zoom, which is of course much easier than schlepping downtown,
Mhm.
But it was terrific to be together.
Yeah. Hank.
The problem I think that comes up is that when it comes into citizens' participation, I think that the people that tune into this don't feel as involved, and sometimes can be ignored. Although I haven't noted that in our meetings, but I think that you're more likely to have the interaction with the citizens if you have it in person. So, I mean, we just have to understand that it's more difficult, I think, for larger numbers of citizens to participate when it's a Zoom conference. That's all.
Yeah, and I channel some of those thoughts too. As a panelist, I think it's easier and more convenient. As a citizen, trying to dial in and get your 3 minutes in or something like that, or even being able to show. I used to be able to walk, into a meeting and hand them a thumb drive and maybe get a chance of getting a presentation put up or getting to show my pictures of something. Attending all these meetings on, for example, the zoning. No no one in the public gets to be able to put their presentation up and show their pictures and show their side of it. They have to, verbalize it in 3 minutes or less. And so I don't think the process for submitting information to be able to be viewed in a Zoom call is complete in that regard. I hear that a lot from people.
My vote would be is to go in person when it's, comfortable for everybody.
Yeah.
But, and to me, the sooner the better. Conservation has been doing Zoom for a while, for all the reasons other people said. There is a human connection that's lost here. It's unfortunate. You want to be, we're humans, so we're social. But it's also about people getting, like you say, a fair shake, so to speak, in part of the process. It's hard. That being said, something seems to have happened with zoning, because zoning board was the only board about 6 months ago that basically called the mayor's hand and said, we're going in person. And they went in person, I believe, for like 3 months. But now I have a meeting tomorrow night, Thursday night, Thursday, that they're back on Zoom. So I don't know if it was because it was a spike in Omicron. I don't know if that's what drove it, but from what I understand, they're back at Zoom. So I think time will kind of tell us when it's right. But right now, I think, unfortunately, Zoom is the best we have. But I agree. I'd rather be in person myself.
Oh, why don't we, several of us have different contacts within city government. Why don't we all just, ask what's going on and find out where the city is going? I know, I can't remember where the city council is going to try a hybrid meeting somewhere, I think out of the library. Is that just something thought of, or are they actually doing it?
Well, the city council is going to meet in person and the people can Zoom in, and that's on the 24th. They're going to meet in the Friends Room at the library. And people who want to, I guess, contribute or comment will have to do it by Zoom.
Well, that's considered a hybrid process? Is that what that is?
Yes. That's actually spelled out, I think, in state regulation that still exists.
Well, I think there seems to be more than a little interest in getting together. I would agree too, when people are comfortable. So let's all poke around at it with folks we know, and we can talk about it again next month. Sound good?
Yeah, could I ask one more question? Assuming that if we still are doing Zoom, could you update us all as the meeting progresses? Like, I'm always curious to know if there's any member of the public listening, and I don't know, like, you're the only one that knows that as the admin
You
of the
can
Zoom.
look on your screen right now.
Yeah,
I can?
yeah.
I'm looking at, there's a Patty Emerald who's,
So I don't see that. I
So-
don't
Down
have
at the
access.
bottom.
Yeah, go to the top menu line for Zoom where it says Meeting View Edit Window. See that part? Click on View and you should be able to view participants, I think.
Patty
So
Emerald.
all I see for participants are us.
Yeah,
Oh,
but if you hit that, it'll also show
click on
the other
attend.
people. The one at the bottom of the screen where it
Click
says
on
participants. If you touch that participants, it'll come up participants and attendees.
How many-
Oh, thank you.
Oh, there it is.
All right. So I
Yep.
did not know that before. Thank you.
Sorry,
Neither did I, Carrie.
yeah. Hey, Patty, sorry we're using you as a guinea pig here.
I know Patty, sorry.
We had Denise Piscucci and a couple of other people on earlier, but it popped
Yeah.
up.
All
Another
right.
thing to think
Interesting.
about, some part of a few referral groups, but when the warmer weather comes, if it's still, people are nervous, is it required that we meet indoors?
No, you can have a public meeting outdoors.
Why not?
Interesting idea. Well, food for thought. Let's talk about it again next month. Onwards. Next agenda item is the discussion of the CPC plan review. My discussion of the CPC plan review is to not discuss it. I wanted to put on the agenda just to make sure that I followed up on sending the latest but very old community preservation plan. And just to put a marker in that once we finish with our work, this round of applications, that we should be on looking at this right away come September, October. Because it needs to be reviewed. I've read through it once. It seems fine to me. I think it's a little bit more than what it needs to be, but I'd like to talk to some of the folks who wrote it to see why they put so much stuff in it. But
I thought the same thing. I did a quick buzz through the pages and I couldn't understand why they tried to put so much of the eligibility criteria in there. Like, why wouldn't the source of truth for all that, it resides in the coalition website.
right, and it's the statute itself. You don't need
Right, the
to,
statute itself. Why try to copy that? Right, I would take all that out. There's ways to clean that up and maybe put our vision for Gloucester in there instead.
right. So when you get a chance, when, nighttime reading, when you want to put yourself to sleep, you can start to take a read through it. But I'd like to just move on to that, to our last agenda item, which is next meeting. But I did want to talk about this a little bit, unless there's any more talk about the CPC plan. Okay. Next meeting will be the third Tuesday in May, which is May 17th. But for those of you who have been here last year and probably prior years, we have such a large application pile this year that I think we're going to have to, well, I know we're going to have more meetings than one a month in order to properly review, deliberate, and make our decisions at our September meeting. So I'd like to review briefly how we did that last year. I think it was a good process, but let's make sure that everybody still agrees. Basically, applications came in. We had conversations like we did tonight for the May meeting, and then I think the June meeting. But then we scheduled, and I'd have to go back and look at minutes to confirm if any of you guys remember. I think we had 3 separate meetings for applicants to make presentations and for us to ask detailed questions. And we scheduled 3 or 4 each night, and to do that, so we had like 3 meetings to do that. So I think we had a meeting every other week for at least 3 weeks in a row, maybe 4. Does that ring a bell with you guys?
It does with me, Matt.
And we said, please keep your presentation to 5 minutes tops, and let's reserve 10 minutes or more for questions and discussion. I think it went okay. The problem is we have twice as many applications this year. And so I'm a little concerned about how often we're going to have to meet to get through all these. I mean, my first thought is let's schedule meetings every other week, starting with the June meeting. And then it'll take us either one really long meeting or 2 meetings to make decisions when we get around to September. So those are my initial thoughts. I really haven't thought about it in agonizing detail, but I think we're going to have every other week meetings for June, July, and maybe August. I hate to do that in the summertime, but that's the nature of the beast.
My only suggestion there would be is to put that framework in place sooner rather than later. Or we're gonna end with a train wreck with all these applications and we got 10 members traveling and enjoying the summer, that could get sticky.
Right. All right. You know, and that's one good thing about Zoom meetings. If we have a quorum, we're missing 1 or 2 people, you can go back and watch the video. You may not get to ask questions, but at least you can see what happened. Why don't I'll tell you, I will do this. I will throw out kind of a pro forma schedule. And I think what I'll do also is maybe take a first shot at which applications we have on which nights, just because some of the applications can be real quick. Like I thought the Adventure Rudder application presentation would be last year, if you guys remember that one. I mean, it was just the rudder, and I thought it'd take Stefan a minute to talk about it. He talked about it for 10 minutes.
Right.
But some are easier than others. So, maybe we have, one that's going to be complicated and have a lot of questions each night, and have hopefully 2 others that pair with it. So I'll take a shot at laying that out and I'll send it off to you in the next week or two.
Sounds good.
Okay,
Okey-doke. All right. Do I hear a motion to close this meeting of the,
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
so moved?
I second it.
Seconded by Bob. The motion is moved and seconded. I'm going to ask for unanimous vote on this. All in favor of closing the meeting, say aye.
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 All against, say no. Motion to close is passed. This meeting of the Community Preservation Committee is over. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Good night.
Thank you, everyone.
Well, everybody.
Bye-bye.